Welcome to the Luxury State of Mind podcast, where we focus on intentionally crafting a life that feels tailor-made for you. On each episode, you'll learn how to create luxury in your everyday life and celebrate the uniqueness that is you. I'm your host, Damio Shodi, and I'm excited to help you develop a luxury state of mind. Hey there, welcome back to the Luxury State of Mind podcast. I'm your host, Damio Shodi, and on this podcast, my goal is to help you live in luxury every single day of your life, okay? So luxury meaning a meaningful life, a life that feels very fulfilling to you, that feels like you're right at home, and that allows you to exercise every good thing, your gifts, your talents, everything about you every single day of your life. So on this podcast, we speak more on the mindset. So it doesn't matter, where you're at financially. It doesn't matter your family background, where you're coming from. You can literally live in luxury today. And in the Luxury State of Mind podcast, this is broken down into 3 different principles. First one being identity, second one being intentionality, and then third one being freedom of choice. So those type of principles fall into every single topic that we talk about on this podcast. And it just teaches you how you can live a fulfilling life every day. Because when we think about luxury, we think it's only about going on the trips and buying the bag and getting all the nice stuff. And all that can be luxury and should be a part of your life if that's something that you desire. But ultimately, luxury honestly looks like being able to be satisfied with your life, being able to be fulfilled in your life. And that leads me into the topic of what we're going to discuss today. And in this episode, we are really going to dive into an area that probably is a reason why you are not feeling fulfilled in life. So if you are feeling lost currently, if you're feeling unfulfilled and you're not feeling your best, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter what nice things you currently have and things that people say are, the best, like you should be happy, and within yourself that you are just unsatisfied, then this episode is definitely for you. What we're going to discuss is what happens when you ignore your gifts, when you ignore the true fullness of who you are to pursue a vision or to pursue something that is totally out of alignment with who you are and how you were actually made. And you may not even know that you're doing this. You may just be thinking, you grinding it out. You're doing your thing. You're living life to the fullest, but deep down in your heart, you just know that something is missing and you can't scratch it. You're like, I just can't figure it out. And it's causing a lot of turmoil. So we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to use my own life as an example, because this was actually something that over time I've come to learn that I had a certain mindset starting from a very young age that disrupted the way or the potential of where life could have been at certain stages of my life, right? And this is not to say that I'm like upset and sad about it. I've had the time to process and think about it, and I probably still will continue to keep thinking and processing about it and asking myself questions. But being able to identify this mindset and how it shows up, what happens when it shows up, can really help you to start making steps that will allow you to live a more fulfilling life that is a luxury life. So when I always envisioned myself as a young child, I always envisioned myself that I would be doing great things. I had no fear of that. I never thought, I wouldn't be great. And that may be a crazy statement, but I think it had a lot to do with, my parents and what they spoke to me about, and even the potential that people saw in me. So, I wanted to be maybe like a multimillionaire and all these different things at a very young age. And I wanted to just attack life. And in one of the ways that I did that, so this is one of the first ways this showed up, was I created a business when I was 14. Or at least the beginnings of a business that eventually launched when I was about 15 or 16. So in building this business, basically what I did, and this is when, e-commerce was becoming popular. I was on that wave. So I would do basically business meetings as this young 14-year-old. I would meet with a web designer to help build this business that would eventually sell products. I would sell t-shirts, and then eventually that led into bracelets. I don't know if you remember that time back in the early 2010s when, t-shirts were a thing, and then also these like silicone bracelets. They were very popular at the time, and a lot of what we now would call influencers were selling those on their blog posts, right? So I would be sketching all these different designs in my sketch pad. I would bring it with me everywhere. And I'm not really like a artist, right? Like I'm not an artist at all, but just something about creating. One thing that I desired, and this is such a desire for me, even to this day, is to use my gifts and find enjoyment in doing that. I always admired people who were able to create something out of nothing, and they did it in a way that is unique to them. I mean, that's the premise of what we're talking about and what this whole podcast is about, like your uniqueness. So all these things, I've been on this tip for a very long time. Okay. So I was very passionate about this business. I felt so alive when I started doing this. Like if I had to think of the times in my life where I felt my most truest self, it was definitely in this time period. So I would make time to make these sketches for these t-shirts. I would have meetings with a web designer and my mom at 9 p.m. at night, and then wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go ice skating. That's a different story for another day. My ice skating journey. But yes, I did this for a long period of time. I'd go on Saturdays and get t-shirts printed. I even did my own photo shoot. Like I was locked in. This idea just made sense to me. I had an LLC. My mom was supporting me. Everything looked great. And this business really had the potential to go somewhere. On the outside looking in, it truly had the potential to be something big. But there was a problem. Okay. There was a big problem. The problem was, at 6 years old, I came up with this idea in my mind that I wanted to be a doctor. And for years, I held on to that dream like no man's business. And it doesn't mean like, oh, if I want to do this t-shirt business, I can't be a doctor. That's not the meaning. But I had this dream of being a physician. Mind you, if you saw me in school, I would study so hard in math and science and get bare minimal grades. I mean, sometimes I would excel in those classes, but honestly, I had to try very, very hard. But in the areas of creativity, writing, and all those things, I would actually excel more, but completely ignored those. So what started happening was, and even, it's not even like, oh, the business wasn't even doing anything. Mind you, I would be making these bracelets, right? People in other schools were requesting these bracelets. I think the first week that I launched the bracelets part, I made like $200 or $300 within my school just by telling people about it. Like people wanted to buy them for me. I sold them for $7. People wanted to buy them from me. They would tell their friends about it. My cousin who was in a different school in a different part of town, be like, oh, my friends want to buy your bracelets. Like, here's their cash. Like I was out here making that shmoney. But the dream of I need to go to medicine, I need to be a doctor and da-da-da-da, which in all honesty wasn't a good fit for me for so many reasons, was much stronger. And what I had to realize from that, or something that I've had to ask myself when looking back at that situation, why was that so much more important? Because what ended up happening was I didn't continue the business. I kind of just said, I got to focus on going to medical school. Like this business is not really, important. And I remember somebody questioned me. He said, why? Why would you want to give this up to go to medical school? And I gave him all the logical reasons as to why. Mind you, I'm struggling, but I'm like, oh, this is the reason why. Da, da, da. And he's like, no, there's so much potential with this. But I was not hearing it. I was one track minded. This is what I was going to do. I'm the type of person, I've always identified myself as the type of person that when I set my mind to do something, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I was doing, but to my detriment. So I really had to ask myself some questions, as an adult. I'm like, why? What made me stop this good thing? And a lot of it had to do with me wanting to prove my ability, that I was smart. As I said, when I was in school, I was that student that wanted to excel. I really, really wanted to do well in every area. And I would try and I would try. And a lot of the times I did not hit the mark that I wanted to meet. I even had to get tutoring. So I was upset about that why do I have to get tutoring while other kids seem like they're so much smarter, they're so much better. So now you start having these mindsets, and some of the things that you may struggle with today are things that came about when you were a child. This need to prove you're smart, need to prove your ability. It can cost you a lot, and it can kill the potential of things that you would have actually excelled in. Because again, I was actually good in writing. I'd be the first to finish my papers. I was able to enter writing competitions when I was younger. I was able to do speaking engagements when I was younger, but I completely ignored all of that and just was one-track minded because I wanted to know and to prove to myself and to prove to others that I fit in. I'm smart enough. So goodbye, Unique 28. Goodbye, the potential of a business that as of today, God knows where it would have been, right? Also, another thing I realized is, chasing after structure, chasing after stability. Of course, as human beings, we need stability, right? We do need to feel stable. Sometimes when you have a calling or something that is far, beyond even your time, because what I was doing was new. If there's nobody to look at, even in your surrounding, to help you or to, not even to help you, but for you to know that this can work, it's easy to default to something that makes sense. And which makes sense because it's stable. It's something that you can see. So that was also another thing, my desire for stability also, and going on a path that, point A to point B, point C, because if you go that medicine route, everything is structured. You know exactly what you need to do. But if you start a business at 14, you don't really know what you're doing. So those are two things. So that project came to a close. So then you would think that, okay, well, she's just going to keep going, doing her medicine thing, and maybe she'll get it later in the future. But you know what's funny about life? And I said this to somebody without even realizing the truth of it, and they're like, dang, that was good. And I said, you know what? It is good. The thing about your life is it will show you who you are. There are things that you are doing in your life that maybe you're going down one path, maybe you're going down a certain career path or doing a certain thing. And to be quite honest, you don't even like it, right? It's not fulfilling, whatever. But there are things that you do that actually bring you joy, and you're doing it without even realizing it. So even though in this story, a lot of the things that I didn't get to continue, it shows me that, man, your life really does show you where you belong and the different things that you should be doing. So I wasn't like, okay, medicine, that's it. Let's just keep it moving. When I was 17 years old, I decided to start a fashion blog. And this was truly a hobby. I started this fashion blog. I think my junior year of high school. So I literally blogged, I think, every day, that whole summer. And that site even may still be available. And again, this is the time where blogging was still relatively new. There was only a few popular bloggers at that time. And this was a time where Marie Forleo started blowing up a little bit on YouTube. She became more popular and her content became more popular on YouTube. So I'm just letting you know the times, okay? This was an opportune time. I mean, with that blog, I really did have success. And I didn't even realize that's what it was, because blogging and content creation at that time was so genuine. It was just there wasn't perfection. It was genuinely just fun and exciting, and people wanted to talk. So a lot of engagement I had on my blog posts. People would tell me, oh, I love your post. I love this. I would be collabing with different bloggers. We would be, writing different posts for each other on each other's blog posts. I even went to New York for a blogging conference during my junior year as well. I went to New York and I got to meet literally majority of the bloggers that I literally stalked on the internet every week. I got to, meet them, ask them questions, take pictures with them. So I was in New York for that day, and then I flew right back home. And then I even had the opportunity to go to Fashion Week. At that time, you could just email a designer that you liked and be like, hey, I really love your designs. I would love to be press at your show. Would you mind if you give me a ticket? I think I read it online somewhere that that's what people were doing. So I said, let me try it. And the designer actually responded back to me and gave me tickets to their show. Now, the only reason I didn't show up to New York Fashion Week was because of school or something. I don't even know. Of course, I'm trying to be a student, so I got to be responsible. But low key, it's like, girl, you could have missed a day of school. Like, be for real. Unless there was like some kind of exam that was going on that day, and that's why I didn't go. But nonetheless, I had the opportunity to go to New York Fashion Week. So things are really looking up. This is looking like something that could go somewhere. It could be something. But you guessed it, my friend, there's a problem. Not a problem. I have made this commitment. I must pursue this medical school, and I need to focus on my studies. What does this blog profit me? What is it going to do? It's just a hobby. It doesn't mean anything. I need to focus on school.
I absolutely love the opportunity to be able to celebrate with people and to know what they are doing in life that makes it more meaningful and more exciting, equaling luxury. So let's see what's in the inbox today.
Hi, my name is Shernay Wormley, and I am the current president for the American Marketing Association Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. When I think about the many wins that have happened in my life, I always start with the wins that really helped shape me to being the leader that I am today. And that main win connects me with my heart posture as a servant leader, and to be able to be in this role as the current president to serve others who are in the industry of marketing like myself, but to really just allow them to have the freedom to create programs, visions, dreams, and opportunities for others. So that's my win when I think about who's on my board, who's all of our, volunteers. And when I think about what we get to do and the impact we make on this community, being able to tie them to amazing, valuable resources that only add additional value to their lives, and they give them a sense of belonging and more of a deeper meaning and purpose for their life. So that's my win. Every day that I get to show up and serve this organization, it's always a win for me. Thank you.
I just want to give a huge congratulations to you, Shernay. Congrats on being able to lead in an organization that you truly love and are passionate about. And I really like that you are doing it in a way that is purposeful, not even just for you, but for others. You see the bigger vision, and you're in an industry that is exciting to you. So it takes a lot to be a leader, and for you to step up to the plate, not only to just be a leader, but to be the president of this organization is an amazing opportunity and ability to help and lead others. So again, congratulations to you. As the Luxury State of Mind community, we wish you all the best in your new presidential role. And if you are somebody who wants to share your win on this podcast, we do this every single podcast. It doesn't have to be huge, or it can be a huge win, big or small. I want to hear about it. And we, as the Luxury State of Mind community, want to celebrate you in the steps that you're taking to live your luxury life. So if you are interested in sharing that win, just click the speaker pipe link that's going to be in the show notes of this episode, and you can record it directly from your phone, and we will feature it on the next episode. So thank you so much, Shernay, for your win, and let's get back into the episode. So I did it again. I just stopped blogging. I tried to continue a little bit later. And granted, I'm going to give myself a little bit of, I was a student. I was young. I really didn't know how to understand potential and how to understand those things at that time. I was just doing what was in front of me, which was I was told to be a good student. And that's what I needed to do. So I focused on studying. I focused on doing the right things. But again, I just do not continue with this beautiful blog that I created, and officially stopped it once I got into college. So again, I'm not mad at myself. I'm not upset that, oh my goodness, I mean, why didn't you continue? Like, what you may even be thinking that, what is wrong with you? Like, why didn't you do it? But of course, hindsight is everything. You can always look back and like, okay, well, I would have done things differently. You just don't know. But now, as I look back at these experiences, and I was even writing this content, I just looked back and I said, man, sometimes we really do not understand the potential of what we have. We don't understand the beauty of what we have at the moment. It's easy to miss, and we're going in one direction, and we're, trying to run down this one direction and hold it with everything you got. You're trying to, like, this is my goal. Maybe you're like me, right? You're an overachiever in so many ways. You want to do things in excellence. You want to make sure that whatever you do is done to the best ability. And you will do anything necessary to make that happen. But at sometimes, holding on to a vision, and a vision that may not even really be from God, a vision that has come up out of insecurities, or that was formed out of what societal pressures told you or familial pressures told you, can really, the word that I want to use is like, when I say smash, not smash, but it can really suffocate in a way the potential of who you are and how you actually want to show up in the world. So you may not even realize why you're miserable. You're just like, I'm just so miserable, because it's like, girl, you're not being yourself. You're being inauthentic in so many ways. So the third example of how this showed up in my life, right? This idea of just sticking to one vision and not allowing myself to allow my true self to really come out and show. So I was a communications major, and there was a professor that really, like, she was cooler than any professor I think I ever had in school, because I think she was just being a professor as like a part-time gig. I don't know how she finessed that with the school, but she was doing it, I think, out of her own enjoyment. But her real full-time job was a consultant. So I think she traveled to different places and did whatever type of communications consulting that she did. She was very beautiful. She was very cool. She was in the know. I'm like, dang, like, this lady is really, really cool. So towards the end of her class, she tells us that there's an opportunity for us to do a travel abroad program in Egypt. I don't remember how long it would be, but we would be working on some kind of project. And she wanted us to let her know if we were interested. She sent out, I think, some kind of form, and we should just let her know that we're interested in joining. And with that, it's so funny because this project was, perfectly in alignment with who I am. It really was. And just the class, I really enjoyed the class. I enjoyed everything about this. And it's just so funny because even when I was on that journey with my medical school journey, I always wanted to stand out. I was always trying to do things to stand out from the status quo of a typical science student. That's why I even majored in communications. And really, it was probably my soul crying out that, girl, get on up out of here. Like, what are you doing? But I didn't see it at the time. I just knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted to be a traveling doctor. I wanted to be a doctor, but I also wanted to be a speaker. Hello? I wanted to be a doctor, but I also wanted to do blah, 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 right? So there was a little bit of holes in my thinking, okay? And I looked at this opportunity, but again, not a problem. I needed to do, I think at the time, organic chemistry or something, which I actually did really well with, by the way. But I had to do organic chemistry that semester or some other class. And this desire to fulfill that vision of where I decided at 6 years old was so much stronger than my actual soul that was like, this is what we should do. That desire to fulfill that vision took over. I didn't even put my name in the ring. I didn't even let her know I was interested in being in that program because I said, for what? It's going to disrupt my plan. It's going to not allow me to progress. So why do I even want to move forward. It's okay. I just need to focus on school. And there are so many examples throughout my life that I realized that when opportunities that really aligned with who I actually am, who I'm made to be, right? And that show my gifts and my talents and that are freeing, I would disregard them for some kind of vision that honestly never really was a good fit for me. So you may be listening to this and you can be shaking your head and realizing that, dang, is this me? Is this why I feel so unfulfilled in my life right now? Is this a reason why I feel so uncomfortable? Yes, I have everything they said I should have. I have the money. I have the career. I get to buy whatever I want. I have it all. But in my heart of hearts, I know I'm missing the mark. I feel so unfulfilled. You're talking about living in luxury. How am I going to live in luxury when every single day of my life feels like a struggle? What do you do when you have lived inauthentically for so long? Because that's what it is. It's inauthenticity. And it's not to say that you're fake. It's a matter of you are not being yourself. Life is showing you in so many areas that this is who you are. Pursue it. But because of whatever, you fill in the blank, you realize that, man, I'm living inauthentically and it is causing problems for me. It is causing stress. So what does that look like? How can you identify if you are living inauthentic? So the first thing that you'll be able to identify, and this is something that I was able to look at throughout my life, is that everything is so hard. Everything becomes hard. So how can you know that you are living in authenticity? How does it show up in your life? How can you identify that maybe this is why things are just not working out? As I said, I was a student that really wanted to excel. I would put in the work and I was never afraid to put the work in. But in the areas that I was just not called to, I would try even harder than most people in my class. And I was a B student, especially in the science. And that was at my best. I mean, if I got an A in science, it was actually very rare. The majority of the time I was a B student and sometimes a C student. And I would put in, and it would make me upset. And, you know, if you knew me back then, people always love to say, oh, you love to study. I saw you in the library. You love to study. And that thing would make me upset. Even today, I'm like, when I hear people say, oh, you always in the library, you love to study. I don't like to study. But because I was in an area that was not meant for me, I had to put in so much effort for bare minimal results. And that really does affect your confidence about yourself, your ability about yourself, as well as it teaches you bad habits that life has to be hard. You start to feel that life always has to be hard. In order to do great in life, it has to be hard. And that's a story that you may not realize that you've adopted and told yourself in order to succeed. And an issue with what happens when you feel like everything has to be hard and you've learned this as a way of life is that you begin to ignore what you're actually good at because it's so natural to you. It comes so easy to you. You didn't even realize that it was a gift. You didn't realize that it is the true nature of who you are, but you just ignored it because it's just too easy. It can't be. My communications degree for me was just too easy. I said, it can't be. I'm just doing this to fill in the blank so I look different for medical school. But when I look back, there was so much opportunity for me there. And I excelled in my communications degree. And I was practicing communications in actual areas of life during my time in undergrad while people were going to, volunteer and intern at corporate companies, which I did do that as well for one semester. But majority of my time was spent mentoring young women in foster care and speaking. I had speaking engagements that I actually got paid for. I was speaking. I started the podcast. I did a marketing internship with this random marketing company that taught me how to sell a product. I was networking. I was collabing. I was doing the things that came naturally to me, and I was traveling. I was doing the things that came naturally to me, but the vision of what was harder was more appealing to me than what actually came naturally to me. So that's one effect you'll see. If you're living inauthentic, you'll realize that you strive. Everything is hard. Everything is a fight just for bare minimal results. Or you might be excelling, but deep down, you know in yourself that this is not life and you're missing the mark despite people's praises. Another way that you'll realize that you are living inauthentic is the emotional turmoil becomes absolutely unbearable. That constant feeling of feeling less than, that's one way that turmoil shows up, because now you're having to prove yourself constantly. You're constantly afraid of, will they find you out? Will they think you're not smart enough? Will they, you're with people who are actually called into the area that you are trying to force yourself into. They're excelling. They're doing it in a very easy way. And you are having to look at them constantly and be like, why can't I be like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do it like them? And you just constantly feel less than. Or there's a constant back and forth in your mind. My goodness, the emotional turmoil. You see my hands going up. That emotional turmoil of, what do I do? Where am I going? I don't know what to do. Do I make this decision? Do I do this? Do I do that? All of these things is stress. And it really does come from a feeling of living inauthentic. It comes from a space of striving for something that, in all honesty, is not meant for you. Because what is meant for you comes with ease. So you'll feel constantly at odds emotionally. And you'll continue to have to work harder and harder to help minimize that voice, minimize that back and forth that's going on. You'll work harder and harder to try and match up to other people when in reality, it's not meant for you. And then another way that emotional turmoil shows up is the constant frustration. You just frustrated. Girl, you just frustrated, okay? You're frustrated all the time. You want something different. You don't know what to do. You feel confused. Like, what do I do? Where am I supposed to go? You keep complaining and complaining and complaining. And you've complained and complained. And nothing has changed. So that frustration, that complaining, let me know in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, and I encourage you to watch this on YouTube as well, let me know. Does this resonate with you? Is this resonating with you? Is this you? Is there something that you've been complaining about that you're like, if I can just get an answer to this, this would help me out? But I want to encourage you that if you are complaining and if you are frustrated, I want you to pay attention to that. I want you to not be like just to silence, say like, oh, I need to be grateful. I need to be this. I need to be that. No, we need to be strategic. We need to think, why am I so frustrated? Why am I constantly complaining? What is really going on in my life that is causing me this emotional turmoil? Could it possibly be that I am not living the life that I actually was called to live? Am I living in a way that is inauthentic to me? Am I holding on to a vision that came from God knows where and doesn't make sense? The type of person that I actually want to be and where I actually want to go. So pay attention to those complaints and how you let go of all these things, or at least begin the steps to move forward, is you have to unlearn this inauthenticity. You have to unlearn this way that you've been going all this time. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about that. Maybe for you, this episode highlighted something to you. It made you think about your life. And now it's like, okay, well, now I know. How do I move forward and make different changes? How do I unlearn this way of living that I've been living for so long? We are going to discuss those steps in the next episode. So stay tuned for that to learn how to unlearn these bad habits. So you can really live a fulfilling life, because it does not matter. I'm telling you what you got. Okay. Trips you take, all those things. It cannot cover up the turmoil and the emotional stress that you feel inside, because you got to return back to your actual life. Like on this podcast, my desire is that you would enjoy your actual life. As I continue to grow on this journey and learn more about myself and learn about all these different things of living a fulfilling life, I'm going to teach you the same thing as well. So let me know in the comments if this resonated with you. Let me know on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like it. And if you feel that this can be helpful for somebody, be a good friend and share this episode with them. If you can do those two things for me, comment below, what did you gain from this episode, or was this helpful for you? And then also share this episode with a friend and subscribe and like, okay? So thank you so much for tuning into the Luxury State of Mind podcast. It is a pleasure to speak with you and serve you through this podcast. And I will speak to you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also view the full episode on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you on the next episode.